Flip over with me a couple of books to Ephesians. I want to show you an interesting verse of Scripture, and it's a verse that undoubtedly probably all of us know, but I want to give you maybe another way to look at this verse, a way to look at Ephesians 4:26 that may be new to you, but I would submit to you that this is actually the right understanding. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26, Paul writes, "Be angry, and yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger." Now, the way we have most often heard this verse taught, be angry, but don't sin, don't let the sun go down on your anger. We've heard this taught primarily as kind of marital advice. If you have a tiff with your wife, it's you get angry, it's understandable. You get angry, it's okay. You can be angry, just don't sin. And don't let the sun go down on your anger. In other words, kiss and make up before you go to bed. Now, I won't argue that that's probably pretty good marital advice, but I would argue that that's what this verse is talking about. It's not. I would submit to you that's not what this verse is talking about. Now, be angry. There's basically two primary words in Greek for anger. Orge and thumos. Orge is referring to a settled disposition of anger. A settled disposition, long-term disposition of anger. That's orge. The other word is thumos in the Greek, and thumos means a sudden outburst of anger. Think of it this way. Think of Mount St. Helens. Orge is the giant pool of lava underneath Mount St. Helens. It's still there right now. And it's just there, always there. Settled disposition. That's orge. Thumos is when Mount St. Helens blew its top in 1980, March, whatever that was, in 1980. So that's thumos, the explosion. Orge is the settled lava. The word that Paul uses here is orge. So why would Paul say, basically, have a settled disposition of anger and yet do not sin? If it's a settled disposition, this is something that's permanent. So I would submit to you the object of this anger is not your spouse. This anger is not a certain outburst of anger. This is a settled disposition. Paul is saying, have this settled disposition of anger, and it cannot be inherently sinful. When Paul says, be angry and yet do not sin, now that yet in your English Bibles, you might notice it's italicized. And the reason it's italicized is because it's not actually in the text. The text actually says this, basically, be angry, don't sin. Be angry, don't sin. If it's not inherently sinful, and it must not be to have this anger, because otherwise Paul would not say, if it was inherently sinful to have this anger, Paul would not say, be angry. So this angry cannot inherently be sinful. So be angry, do not sin. What is the object of this anger? Don't let the sun go down on it. If it's not inherently sinful, then what does it matter if the sun goes down on it or not? In other words, kiss and make up before you go to bed. If it's not inherently sinful, what does it matter if the sun goes down? Let the sun go down and come up the next day, go down again the next day on this anger if it's not sinful. What Old Testament imagery do we think of when we hear the don't let the sun go down? What old story in the Old Testament does that remind you of? Joshua's long day, right? And as long as the sun didn't go down, then the sun stood still and the sun didn't go down, the Israelites were victorious over the Amalekites. I would submit to you that the object of the anger in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26, is in and of itself sin. Paul is saying, be angry, don't sin. Be angry at your sin. Don't let the sun go down on that anger. In other words, dear ones, be angry at your sin and stay angry at your sin. Don't let the sun go down on it.